Good morning, everyone. Welcome. I want to welcome everyone and thank you for joining us this morning. I'll give everyone just one more second to get in. We are here today for the Professional Learning Community Emergent Literacy Train the Trainer 3-day event. My name is Carly Willis with the Regional Educational Laboratory Southeast at Florida State University. And just a little bit about me, I've been at Florida State for 13 years and worked on the design and implementation of many early childhood and elementary grade language and literacy professional development and research projects. But what we're here today for, this PLC may be one of my very favorites. And I'm so excited to share this information with you today. Joining me today are 3 members of the REL Southeast team who played key roles in the PLC design and in the rollout. And I'd like to give each of them a chance to say a quick hello. So first is Dr. Beth Phillips.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. We're so excited to finally be at this point and to share these fabulous materials with you. So as Carly said, I'm Dr. Beth Phillips. I'm Professor of Educational Psychology and Learning Systems. I'm one of the Associate Directors of the Florida Center for Reading Research and an affiliate of the REL Southeast.
Thank you so much, Dr. Phillips. We also have Dr. Marcia Kasanovich.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. I'm in Wake Forest, North Carolina. I'm with the REL Southeast and one of the authors of the PLC Emergent Literacy. And I just want to thank you for being here. And a very quick note, when we originally planned this, it was 2 days face-to-face. So we wish we could be face-to-face, but we really appreciate your participation and your grace as we navigate through our virtual 3 days together.
Thank you so much. And then Miss Sarah Hughes.
Hi, everyone. It's great to kind of meet you face to face. It feels like, because I've had lots of email communication with you. I am the REL Southeast School Readiness Partnership Manager.
Okay, thank you. And then we also have 4 REL Southeast colleagues supporting us today in the breakout rooms. So if you will wave as I say your name, we have Lori Lee, Jennifer Dombeck, Kevin Smith, and Sarah Herrera. So we also thank them for joining us. As we spend our morning together, please feel free to use the chat box. We'll be monitoring that and try to answer your questions as soon as they come in. If we miss any, we'll follow up after today's webinar. We will also be using the chat box a lot, particularly during the next few slides. So go ahead and pull that feature up, have it ready. So when we get to that part, you'll be ready for it. If for some reason you aren't listed in the participant list with your first and last name, several of you might be listed as Sarah Hughes, I encourage you to rename yourself. So you're going to look at the list of participants, find your name, click on more, and then rename. And rename yourself with your first and last name. We also ask that you mute yourself unless you're talking to the group so that we can limit background noise. And we'll be spending some time in our breakout rooms. At that point, you can unmute yourself, of course, to participate more. We are recording today's webinar for those who wanted to be here but couldn't attend, and any of you who might want to review the information later. Okay, so we'll go ahead and get started.
Carly, can you see the slide? Just the slide?
I see the title slide.
Okay.
So we can go to our map. So here is, if you're not familiar with the REL program, the Regional Educational Laboratories are supported by the Institute of Education Sciences at the U.S. Department of Education. And the RELs conduct applied research and trainings with a mission of supporting a more evidence-based educational system. There are 10 RELs across the country, as you can see. Our REL is the REL Southeast at Florida State University, and the REL Southeast supports North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, and Florida. And now I just want to welcome everyone one more time to the PLC Emergent Literacy Train the Trainer event. Thank you so much for joining us. And we have 6 states represented, and we'd like to take a moment to recognize all of you. When you see your state flower on the slide, please type in the chat your name, location, and role. And this is also going to count as a record of your attendance. So we're going to go alphabetically, state by state. First, we have Alabama. And if we could have you type in the chat if you're from Alabama and would like to introduce yourself. And then we have Florida. And we've got a couple Florida representatives. Thank you so much for joining us. And then we have Georgia. And these are the state flowers, so that's kind of fun. Then we have Mississippi. North Carolina. And last but certainly not least, South Carolina. And we will get to know each of you a little bit better in our breakout sessions when we have smaller groups. But thank you so much for typing into the chat your name, your role, where you're from. We really appreciate you being here. We're super excited to share all of this information with you. So thanks again for joining us. Now we're going to play Beat the Clock. So we're going to ask you a question related to emergent literacy just to kind of get your brain flowing and thinking. And you will have 15 seconds to respond in the chat. So without further ado, first question is, if you had to guess, how often do preschool children typically look at the printed text during a read aloud? Record your answer as a percentage. Nine seconds, 8, 7. Okay, time's up. Let's see, we had lots of different people coming in with lots of different percentages. I don't see any that really stood out, but it is actually less than 5% of the time that preschool children look at the printed text when they're getting a story read aloud. Okay, next Beat the Clock question, get ready. Which letters can be more difficult for a child to learn because the letter name does not contain the letter sound? Type into the chat. Which letters are more difficult for a child to learn because the letter name does not contain the letter sound? Time's up. Okay, the letters H, W, and Y, I saw a couple of those coming in. They can be challenging or among the hardest for children to learn because the letter name does not contain the letter sound. So congratulations if you put one of those in. Okay, and then our last Beat the Clock question is, the largest unit of sound on the phonological awareness continuum is at the word level. What are some of the other levels? some of the other levels in the phonological awareness continuum? Oh, we've got some good answers coming in. Time's up. And the answer is you have word, syllable, onset rhyme, and phoneme levels. So I've got several that had all of those. Thank you so much. Good job. Thank you for your participation on that. And now we are going to look at the objectives for this 3-day Train the Trainer event. So now that we've had some fun, let's get down to business. The objectives of this 3-day event are to understand the background and the purpose of the PLC Emergent Literacy materials. And as we continue to talk about this, we're just going to call them the PLC. We want you to become familiar with how the PLC materials are organized. We would like to enhance our understanding of the PLC content, to strengthen our PLC facilitation skills, and lastly, to plan a process for setting up the PLC in our context. And here is an overview of this 3-day Train the Trainer event. Each day consists of 3 hours of online learning. And today, day 1, we will discuss the research and the benefits of PLCs, particularly ones focused on emergent literacy. We will introduce you to the PLC emergent literacy materials and structure. And we will provide you with an overview of Module 1, which is print knowledge, and Module 2, which is phonological awareness. And then you can see that on day 2, we'll reflect a little on Module 2. We'll give you an overview of Module 3 and 4 and discuss next steps. And then on our last day together this week, we're going to discuss considerations for English learner students and students with disabilities. We'll review all the modules. We'll talk about the role of the facilitator. We'll practice facilitating using the PLC materials, so all of you will have the chance to do that, and plan our next steps beyond this Train the Trainer event. So that is our plan for the 3 days. And the purpose of today is to build our knowledge and skills so we all feel confident and comfortable utilizing and implementing this PLC. So today we'll focus on Module 1, like I said, and Module 2. And then at the end of our 3 days, we are really confident that you'll be well equipped to lead the PLCs with preschool teachers. And we hope that you'll provide this Train the Trainer that we're giving you this week to other people in your state who can also become facilitators. So if you do provide this Train the Trainer in your state, consider potential candidates for this training. Given the rich content of emergent literacy instruction addressed in these materials, the ideal facilitator, so be thinking about who that might be, will be an educator with a strong background in emergent literacy. They'll have good communication skills and the ability to relate well to adult learners. So be thinking about who might be a good fit for that. And here's a quick list of the materials needed to participate today. And hopefully we'll have somebody put the website in the chat box now. So if you don't have the materials, you can access them by visiting the website, but hopefully everyone has them handy. And so they look like these different materials. And we hope that you have them in front of you, the printed version of the participant guides for modules 1 and 2. To prepare for today's session, you hopefully read the self-study reading in both of the participant guides. And so we will be using these materials to engage in activities from these guides and discuss these modules today. So I have modules 1 and 2 ready. You'll also need the handout that was sent to you before today called Reflect on Key Messages about Developmentally Appropriate Practices. And if you don't have that handy, we're going to drop that handout in the chat as a reference for you. You don't need the website, but we wanted to point out that everything that you see during our Train the Train the Trainer event, is posted on the PLC Emergent Literacy website. So again, thank you all for joining us. Gather up those materials, have your chat box ready, and I'm going to turn it over to Miss Sarah Hughes.
Thanks, Carly. So again, I'm Sarah Hughes, and it's really great to meet everyone again. Before we get into the research and content of the PLC, we wanted to start by taking some time to reflect on developmentally appropriate practice, and we'll kind of get into why we kind of felt this was important to do. Those who've been in early learning for a while are probably familiar with some polarized thinking that there might be around developmentally appropriate practice and the use of research and standards-based curriculum and instruction. I think we've all been in a room with peers, or we've heard the strained conversations about how to strike a balance between planning meaningful and evidence-based instruction and ensuring that children have the space to develop on their own through the learning environment. So teachers are often in this position of having to kind of make the case for some instructional choices and may feel a push-pull around these issues. So I did drop the link to the document in case you weren't able to grab it, but it's this document here. Go ahead and move the slide. Thanks, Marcia. So before arriving today, we asked you to review and reflect on key messages about developmentally appropriate practice, just by highlighting or circling things that kind of jumped out at you, either because they really resonated with you, or maybe you thought that you've heard people kind of have issue with them and that kind of thing. So using the chat or raising your hand to speak up, share some of your thoughts using the prompts above on the slide. If you reference a specific key message that you read or that you circled or made a note about, please be sure to note that either by saying it out loud or kind of posting it in the chat. So take a minute to type in the chat what your reflections were. And we'll give people just a minute to kind of get their fingers working. All right, starting to fly in now. So great. Meeting children where they are is really important. Being intentionally planful. I see a couple of intentionally planned instruction is critical. I like the comment that kids can tell when you're winging it. Being challenging and achievable. Yeah, intentionality is kind of popping up here. Having defined learning goals, continuous assessment, message 7, attending to learning progressions. Clearly defining learning goals, meeting children, that's great, great. A lot of the same kind of things are kind of popping up. I don't see any negative comments, so it's great, that's great. So you'll notice sort of that we popped out this big kind of overarching question in the gray box. You know, why do we think it's important for facilitators to have these things in mind working with teachers? As we were designing this training, we thought, you know, there's some kind of highlights that we came up with, and we thought that this might be a good activity actually for facilitators of this PLC to kind of put this stuff at the forefront. And here's some of the things that came up kind of in our internal conversations. You know, some teachers might come to the PLC with some misconceptions, you know, around things like explicit instruction, like, oh, that's not developmentally appropriate. It kind of can be helpful to put sort of trigger words like explicit instruction into context before beginning the PLC and referencing it to the research base behind it, which is shared on the handout that we shared with you. It also allows teachers to voice their concerns at the beginning so that as you're going through the 12 sessions of the PLC, the facilitator can address the issues and kind of allow some time to talk about, well, what would make this not developmentally appropriate, or what makes this developmentally appropriate? It assures teachers that evidence-based emergent literacy instruction is not something that you do instead of developmentally appropriate practice. The materials that we're going to be sharing with you over the next 3 days and that you've already kind of, you know, taken a dive into are actually grounded in developmentally appropriate practice. So we just thought we would kind of start that way to sort of frame the entire thing. And now I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Beth Phillips.
Thank you very much, Sarah. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is share some of the research and benefits of professional learning for preschool teachers that it is focused on emergent literacy. This information will help provide you the rationale and the research that supports why we developed the PLC on emergent literacy in the first place. So let me begin by defining emergent literacy. So the main idea, and I know you all know this, but I just want to get us all on the same page. That emergent literacy is the foundational skills that will support children's eventual mastery of conventional literacy skills, including decoding, reading comprehension, and also conventional writing skills, including spelling and composition. Because language skills are central to both emergent and conventional literacy skills, they begin developing right from birth. But they too also benefit from intentional support from adults who provide consistent learning opportunities to children well before more formal reading instruction begins in kindergarten and beyond. I do want to point out one key thing about our terminology that we decided on several years ago when we were launching the development of this set of PLC materials. Emergent literacy is a little bit different than early literacy. Although a lot of people sometimes use those terms as synonyms, our use of emergent literacy stays in the early childhood period, in the sense that our use does not include decoding or learning how to sound out words and reading comprehension, where typically early literacy does. So early literacy covers a broader span of time, in other words. So the core components of emergent literacy include oral language, including vocabulary, plus code-related skills of phonological awareness and print knowledge. Children who learn these skills are less likely to develop further future reading problems and more likely to read with ease, understand what they read, and succeed more broadly in school. Of course, as I'm sure you also know, national research indicates major differences in emergent literacy and language skills in children entering kindergarten, and quite frankly, even before that. These differences often continue into the primary grades. In fact, 2019 NAEP showed that the national average for fourth grade students at or above proficient was just 35%, which is clearly not sufficient for the modern era of what we expect for students in their academic careers and beyond. So because so many children enter kindergarten with limited knowledge and skills, they're simply not able to take full advantage of the formal literacy instruction that begins then. So quite frankly, it's imperative that young children engage in language and literacy experiences before kindergarten that provide that strong foundation to prepare them for learning to read and write. So providing preschool teachers with opportunities to learn how to implement evidence-based language and literacy instruction that support their literacy learning may help ultimately strengthen their downstream outcomes. So professional learning communities, or PLCs, can be an effective way to provide teachers this professional learning support. A PLC involves a group of educators who collaborate to expand their knowledge and enhance their instruction. Unlike traditional PD modules like one-day workshops, PLCs provide an opportunity for leaders to engage with each other in an ongoing and collaborative environment. PLCs have been increasingly used in recent years as a form of PD and used in a variety of formats. Typically, a PLC is a team of teachers that meets regularly to learn new topics, share ideas, and importantly, problem solve together. A facilitator or team leader may guide the team in learning a new topic. Research, including case studies, interviews, observations, as well as some quasi and true experimental studies on PD practices, suggests that PLCs and comparable teacher study group models can indeed foster teacher learning and improve the professional culture within a school. So creating a professional culture that values early educators' current knowledge, desire to learn more, and interest in collaborating with peers supports this culture. Just so you know, we created an informational, interactive infographic, that's a big mouthful, about PLCs in early childhood settings. If you're interested in taking a deeper look, that's the link on the slide. So to summarize, some advantages of PLCs in general are that they add coherence and continuous learning to professional development. PLCs can foster teacher learning, improve the culture, and build professional relationships. Because preschool teachers can help build the foundation to improve children's literacy skills, participating in an emergent literacy focused PLC to learn evidence-based instructional practices makes sense, because we realize and recognize that it's quite possible that those evidence-based practices were not experienced by these teachers in their pre-service training or in previous in-service trainings. So what emergent literacy components should be included in a PLC for preschool teachers? So of course, research tells us that preschool language skills are associated with better reading comprehension later on. Research findings show that the foundation for reading comprehension is established in the preschool years through the development of language production and comprehension, including vocabulary and grammar skills, and through the development of code-related skills, for example, phonological awareness and letter knowledge. Code-related skills and eventually decoding are strong predictors of reading comprehension. And earlier and continuing, language skills support the development of code-related skills and decoding, and of course, ultimately facilitate comprehension of text read aloud. Taken together, these results suggest a need for a broad focus in language in preschool-age children, along with a focus on code. So to summarize, the most important emergent literacy components are oral language, including but not exclusively vocabulary, phonological awareness, and print knowledge. So we've got a video to share with you to get us started off today that talks about how these emergent literacy components ultimately relate to reading comprehension. So this video that we call the literacy tree is an animation from the PLC materials that you're learning about through this Train the Trainer event. The literacy tree information is found on page 7 of the participant guide for module 2, focused on phonological awareness. Because this animation is found in that particular module, there is an emphasis on PA, decoding, and so on, but it shows the entire connections between the entire set of emergent literacy skills between PA, decoding, reading fluency, and reading comprehension. As you watch the animation, think about the importance of what preschool teachers do in classrooms every day to contribute to each child's emergent literacy development.
Phonological awareness, which is taught in pre-kindergarten, is a foundational skill that children will need when in later grades, formal reading instruction begins. Phonological awareness is the understanding that speech can be broken down into segments or parts, and the ability to manipulate those parts. Phonological awareness is one of the core foundational skills that support the development of early reading abilities, just like roots of a tree. The roots of a tree support it, so it does not fall over. Roots of the tree nourish the tree so it can grow. What would happen if there were no roots on a tree? Children who have good print knowledge skills and also good phonological awareness skills can quickly come to understand the connection between the phonemes or sounds and graphemes, the letters. Understanding this connection will help them benefit more from phonics instruction in kindergarten, first grade, and beyond. Think about the instructional scaffold, sound it out. This will only make sense to a child who has a strong foundation in print knowledge, which includes letter names, letter sounds, and concepts of print, phonological awareness, and who has been taught decoding, a process to sound out and read a word. Decoding skills then support the development of reading fluency, and reading fluency is a bridge to reading comprehension. A strong vocabulary and strong oral language skills also contribute to the development of decoding skills, which then supports reading comprehension. The other foundational emergent literacy skills, vocabulary and oral language, directly support reading comprehension. Although all of these emergent literacy skills are important, the focus of this module is on phonological awareness. Without a strong foundation in phonological awareness, a child is unlikely to develop the word reading skills needed to understand text, which is the goal of reading. With a strong foundation in phonological awareness, children can benefit from reading instruction in their future years in school.
So if you're following along in your facilitator guide, you'll notice that we have some discussion points and discussion questions about the video that are included in the speaker notes, such as, what is taught in preschool to prepare children for reading instruction in kindergarten and later grades? So go ahead and drop some of your thoughts about that into the chat. And while you're thinking about that one, you can also drop in your responses to what might occur if a child does not have well-developed phonological awareness skills. I'm watching some great answers come in. That's right. PA is among the first steps. So phonics instruction will be particularly difficult for those that don't have a strong foundation in phonics awareness. Absolutely. A child that does not develop these early skills will struggle with decoding basic words, and not only basic words, but especially more complex multisyllabic and even more complex words. Strong PA paves the way for learning to read and write. I couldn't have said it better myself. The foundation is essential. That's right. The message of the literacy tree and the visual that we hope you got is that the tree can't grow and bloom and bear fruit without its strong root system. And so what we consider the emergent literacy skills focused on in this PLC as that root system. So now I'm going to turn it back over to Carly, who's going to share more about the PLC itself.
Okay, so now that we understand the importance of just professional learning communities, I wanted to talk with you specifically about our PLC, Emergent Literacy, and remind you that it was developed by the REL Southeast in collaboration with our REL Southeast School Readiness Partnership. So many of you may have been involved in this from the beginning several years ago when we started. The goal of developing this resource was to provide pre-K teachers opportunities to engage in effective and sustained professional learning. So now we'll just provide an overview of the materials and the structure to give you an idea of the organization. So the materials are grounded in 3 areas of research. First, the 4 areas of emergent literacy children need to be more likely to understand what they read when formal reading instruction begins. So those are print knowledge, phonological awareness, vocabulary, and oral language. The second area of research is the structure of a professional learning community, which provides collaborative and engaging learning experiences for teachers. And lastly, instructional practices that are evidence-based. So let's explore some of these PLC materials. The materials are organized by 4 key emergent literacy components, which we call modules. So we have print knowledge, phonological awareness, vocabulary, and oral language. And each module includes 3 sessions. So there's a total of 12 PLC sessions. The sessions for each module follow a general pattern. So the first session focuses on the what and why of whatever topic we're discussing in that module. The second on the effective teaching practices. And the third is on considerations for modifications and additional resources. And you can kind of see an overview of those sessions there. Okay, each PLC session follows the same process or format for collaborative learning. So to give you a sense of what a PLC session is like, I'm just going to quickly go over the 5-step process that's used in each session, each of the 12 sessions. So step 1 is to debrief. And it's identified by those little talking cartoon bubbles. During step 1, you'll discuss experiences and reflections about the content and an instructional practice that you planned and implemented since the last session. So kind of debriefing on what you did before. Step 2 is when we define and discuss session goals and the content, and it's identified by a little target, which tells us that we will zero in on this particular thing for the session. And the facilitator will summarize the previous session's goals and the current session's goals, a sort of where we've been and where we're going. The facilitator is also going to share foundational and background information, while the group has discussions or does activities that support the self-study reading that the participants were asked to complete before the session. Step 3 is learn and confirm, and it's identified by a magnifying glass to illustrate that we'll look closely at information that the participants read about in their self-study reading. So you'll explore new practices, you'll compare them to current practices, and here's where participants will really access and build background knowledge and experiences related to the topic of the session. The facilitator here in this step is going to explicitly teach the session's content through examples, models, videos, and discussions that the group will have. Step 4 is collaborate and practice, and it's identified by those tools. Here, you're going to collaborate in pairs or small groups to practice applying the strategies that we went over and any of the activities that we introduced. And then in step 5, we have reflect, plan, and implement, which is represented by signs with arrows pointing back for reflect and forward for the planning and implementing. So participants will reflect on what they learned during the session, and they'll also plan how those activities and strategies will be implemented in their classroom prior to the next session. So they get a little do this before we meet again assignment. And then they go and they implement that plan. It's important that everyone is prepared at the start of the next session so that we can share our experiences and so forth. So really encourage the participants to do those planning and implementing steps. So here are some of the materials. Each module comprises 4 resources. So you have a facilitator guide, which is a little bit thinner, and a participant guide, which is a bit thicker. You have the videos and PowerPoint presentations. And I'll kind of provide a brief introduction to each of those. So the facilitator guide includes a structured plan to deliver professional learning, the slides, and the speaker notes. It provides you or whoever is the PLC facilitator with a game plan for conducting each of the sessions. It lists what you need to read, what materials you need to gather and prepare, what videos to get queued up to show before delivering each of your sessions. So the intent is for the facilitator to read each session's content prior to the session and use their own unique style to convey those topics, all that information, and explain the activities. The PowerPoint presentation includes slides that you can have up and projected during each of the sessions, and we also provide you the speaker notes. The speaker notes are just reminders for the facilitator. We designate those by the capital all caps word notes. So that gives you some important reminders for each of the slides or where it is important. And then the speaker notes also include prompts that provide key information about the concepts on each slide, And we would really like for you to paraphrase those notes and deliver them in your own style as you deliver it. The speaker notes explain how to use the 5-step process so that there's collaborative learning and includes discussion questions, small and whole group activities that you can do with the participants, and any key points about videos that you are asked to show during those sessions. Now, the videos include classroom demonstrations and sometimes animations. So classroom demonstration videos are going to show you preschool teachers applying the evidence-based language and literacy instructional practices. Animations like the literacy tree that we showed you illustrate concepts. And there's always a video viewing guide included for the participants to sort of process what's being shared in the videos and engage in more of a discussion in the videos. So it sort of gives them a task and things to look for as they watch the videos. Key points about the videos are included again in your speaker notes as the facilitator, and they're there for you to highlight in case they aren't mentioned in the discussion. So we want you to have a discussion, but then make sure that you touch on some of the points that we mentioned. And the video links are embedded in the PowerPoint presentation, and they're found in the participant and facilitator guide, as well as on the website. And then you have the participant guide, and it contains the emergent literacy content and the activities for the teachers. Each of the 4 participant guides, one for each module, has the same organization. So you have the self-study reading piece, and each module has those 3 sessions. So before each session, participants are going to complete a self-study reading. And in that self-study reading, there are 3 parts. So there's the features of effective instruction and how they relate to emergent literacy. There's pieces about considerations for students with disabilities or English learner students. And then at the end, there's additional resources. So the last session of each module gives you a list of free additional resources related to the module's topic. And then you have the activities that are designed with a purple border on the side of the page, and they're completed during and sometimes between sessions. So they include hands-on activities, video viewing guides, lesson plan templates, and discussion questions, any of those or a combination of those. And the slides are presented by you, and they're included at the back of each participant guide. So the teachers will have a participant guide that you can print out for them. And at the back, there are all of the slides with an area for them to take note. Then you have the reproducible materials, which are the instructional materials that you use throughout the sessions, and many of them teachers can use in their classrooms. And then there's a glossary that defines the words in bold type. And then finally, there's the references at the end of each participant guide. So lots of good information in those participant guides. Each module focuses on one emergent literacy component and includes evidence-based instructional practices aligned to that component. So here on this slide, there's an overview of those instructional practices. So for module 1, we've got evidence-based instructional practices like small group explicit instruction, print referencing. Module 2, the small group explicit instruction again, using the PA continuum, and embedding phonological awareness throughout the day. And then you can see in module 3, we have building and using word networks, determining which words to teach, dialogic reading, play-based interactions, and that explicit instruction for specific words. And then finally in Module 4, Oral Language, you can see that we have play-based interactions with teacher scaffolding, recasts and expansions, embedding brief language interactions, encouraging decontextualized language, multi-turn conversations, peer-to-peer language interactions, and interactive reading. And we'll go through these as we spend more of our time together over the next couple days. But all of these instructional practices are highlighted in all of our materials. And then, of course, teachers do many more things throughout the day as well. So for the features of effective instruction, every module also refers to this piece and how they relate to that module's emergent literacy component. So here's a list of the features. In the PLC materials, each feature is defined individually, but it's important to keep in mind that the features of effective instruction work together. And they're the basis of high quality literacy instruction. Examples of features of effective instruction are presented in the self-study reading, and teachers are provided opportunities to practice both during the PLC sessions and between the PLC sessions in their classroom. So we're going to practice hands-on as we're having our sessions, and then they'll leave there and they'll practice in their classrooms with the children and come back with all of these new experiences that they have gained and feedback that they have learned. Features of effective instruction include instruction that is systematic. You can see that there at the top. It includes a carefully planned scope and sequence. It's explicit, scaffolded, and differentiated. So you'll notice these symbols to represent each feature of effective instruction throughout the materials. So you'll see those symbols. Okay, so here is activity 4, features of effective instruction. And it's found in Module 1, Print Knowledge. And notice the step 4 icon in the top left corner of the slide. Each time a session moves to a new step of the 5-step process, it is noted up in that top left corner. So look there, be on the lookout. Also notice the purple banner across the slide. This indicates that it's now time to do an activity. And so if you will, turn with me to this activity on page 11 of the Module 1 Participant Guide. So just grab your Module 1 Participant Guide and turn to page 11. The speaker notes on the slide are going to tell you how much time to allow for the activity and the materials needed, the directions, and key points to highlight. So we'll take a moment to review the table. For this activity, the participants are going to review the table and consider 2 questions related to their print knowledge instruction. And those 2 questions are, which feature of effective instruction do you think you implement well in your instruction of print knowledge? And provide an example. And then the second question is, which feature of effective instruction do you want to improve on in your instruction of print knowledge? And describe how you might do that. So they'll have a few minutes to kind of reflect on that, think that through, and then they'll turn and talk to their shoulder partner about their answers. And then the facilitator can call on volunteers to share the highlights from that paired discussion. Now, as you listen to participants share information from their discussion, you might want to note which features they want to know more about. So as you continue to go through the sessions for Module 1, you can really spend some time and highlight and focus on those areas that come up in future sessions and readings. Okay, so before we move on, I just want to pause and see if we have any questions or comments about what we've talked about so far. Maybe something about the content or the organization, anything that caught your attention. And you
I
can
have a
type in.
question.
Yes, absolutely.
I think I heard you say at the end of each PowerPoint, the link is there for the participant packet. Is that correct?
Marcia, do you want?
I heard you say the link was somewhere, and
Oh, it's in the chat.
thank you.
Yep, and do you want me to drop it again so it's right at the end?
Yes, please, thanks.
Oh, the link to the website. Yes.
Yeah, we have a website with all of the materials on there, and they're organized by module. So if you go to module 1, you're going to see everything you need for module 1.
Question in reference to the participants guide. If I say I do redeliver this to a school or to an organization, can they purchase these rather than me printing? Can they purchase the bounded materials?
Unfortunately, we can't do that because it's an IES product, so we can't
Sure.
sell them.
Okay, I was just wondering. So we definitely need to print the materials.
Yeah. I know it's a lot to print. There is the possibility of them going to the website and, reading the self-study, reading online and things like that. But those activities, we really want them to engage in and, reflect and do their writing. So, there are several options in the facilitator guide at the very beginning, introduction part of the facilitator guide, of different options you could use, printing in black and white, or just printing out the activities, so we give you some of those options in the beginning of each facilitator guide.
Okay, so our participants can't have the participant guide. We need to print those ourselves. That's what I was like. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Thank you for clarifying. I appreciate that.
Well, let me clarify again. Anyone can go on the website and download and print their own copy. So every piece of material is freely available to everyone. So to answer another question from Heather in the chat, yes, a facilitator or an administrator who's supervising a group of participants can arrange on their own to have hard copies printed for their group of teachers and for their facilitators. So yes, anyone can print. Our point was just that if that becomes a financial difficulty, we were giving some suggestions about how a group could choose to only print out certain pieces and leave other pieces electronic. So for example, maybe only print the interactive activities, but have the readings be something that people just download and read on their own computers.
So we are the only lucky ones with the beautiful bound book.
For the moment. Although I do know that some others have some plans to at the state level have some plans to do some sharing.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? If not, we're going to take just a quick break, 2 minutes, get up, stretch, look away from the computer, and then we'll come back in 2 minutes and Marcia will walk us through module 1. So you don't want to miss that.